Why should we be immortal? Why? Can you give us the answer to that? Why?
So, you kind of took me or put words in my mouth saying that, look, because I'm afraid of dying, that was why I want to live forever. That's one aspect of it. And another aspect that was really that I love life, and that most transhumanists love life. They're curiosity addicts. They just want to see what happens. I mean, what a time to be alive right now with the age of AI and all these longevity treatments and things like this. I mean, this is an amazing experience. So that's a huge, facet of why people don't want to die as well. So my love of life is a huge reason why I don't want to die. And let me just say that's, to answer your question, that's what starts to form the ethical framework of my version of transhumanism. Now, of course, transhumanism is wide, just like Christianity is. There's probably a lot of versions, a lot of ethical boundaries and ethical frameworks. But mine is because I love life enough to want to live indefinitely. And from that, you can kind of take a whole set of standards. And most transhumanists would agree that the scientific method is the best ethical framework to discovering that set of standards.
Scientific method is not an ethical framework.
I agree with you. It's totally not. But it provides a very sound board upon which to create this ethical framework that you're searching for.
No, it doesn't.
And oh, come on. The scientific method is perfect.
The scientific method is designed to give us
things.
No, it's designed to give us descriptors. It can't tell us what to do with any of this stuff, right? The idea, first of all, working as an engineer, robots specifically was what I worked on more than anything else. The idea of that we're in this massively sophisticated, almost Terminator level technology is absurd. We're not. Most robots you'll find in every type of plant you can think of, from automotive to food, regardless of where you are not particularly sophisticated. Many of them are still using 1970s, 1980 technology with photo eyes and pusher arms. That's actually the type of technology that you're dealing with. There are some elite companies which have designed some sophisticated Johnny Five-like robots. That's true, right? But we're not nearly as progressed as people would have you believe on that front. The reason I'm tying this in and kind of explaining this and expressing this is because when you say that the scientific method can itself be a starting position for some ethical framework, it can't. It's not even designed to do that. It's designed for you to make an observation, and based on the observation, come up with a hypothesis and test it for a descriptive truth, a material truth. It does not give you moral oughts and can't. And so neither can your starting axiom of immortality. When you say why, you just give me a preference. So why? What are you grounding this in?
Well, I already told you, it's my love of life as well as my fear of death. Those are the two things that are kind of pushing me forward.
So it's
and
just
it's not that
it's
not that scientific method is this kind of like framework. From the point of that, I love my life and I'm afraid of dying. Therefore, I use the scientific method to discover how to protect that. And this comes across in the 3 laws of transhumanism. Again, just so your listeners know, this is the novel that he was talking about, The Transhumanist Wager. Let me put in a little a book promo there. And this starts off with the 3 laws of transhumanism, which really say you're trying to acquire power to protect your life because you love it and you don't want to die. And the scientific method just provides all the different, ideas, philosophical nuances, and rules, laws that you might follow in order to best fulfill that idea that you don't want to die because you love it.
The scientific method does not provide for philosophical nothing. That is not what its job is. Its job is to only explore material claims. That's it. And to test those material claims against descriptive reality. It is not
but
a
you use those material claims to try to move forward.
Hang on, I didn't say anything while you were going. Just give me a second to respond. Right? You can use those pieces of evidence, I guess, to push forward some other types of material claims, like, well, 100 people are hungry, right? And here's the measurement for that. But what it can't tell you is why you ought to feed them. Do you see the distinction there? Yes, I can maybe empirically demonstrate for you that you need X amount of caloric intake in order for you to not feel hungry anymore. And I can scientifically demonstrate that. And that would be a claim which I can empirically then prove. But that doesn't tell us why we should feed those hungry people. That's the distinction. Why ought I do that? Why ought we do these things? And this is the problem with your entire grounding, is that it's axiomatically flawed because it just starts with a preference. I want to live forever. But that's nice. But why should we live forever?
Yeah, but you're kind of putting words in my mouth. And listen, obviously, I want to live forever, not just because I love my life, but because I love people around me, including you guys, including family, including society. I mean, and I love the earth. I mean, there's a whole range of reasons that you want to live indefinitely and not die, and that's because life is great. So when you talk about family, you want to protect them. So that becomes kind of part of this whole intrinsic why I don't want to die or why I love life.
Yeah, I understand that you have individualistic reasons for why it is that you, Zoltan, wants to live forever. I get that completely. But do you understand that that is not a prescriptive ought for why people ought to want to live forever, right? You're not giving us that part. You're giving us instead a baseline axiom that you came to through your own preferences, which does not tell us why we ought to follow it. It doesn't give us anything. And because of that, what you've done is you've destroyed the entire idea from the Christian perspective of teleology. Why should I be immortal, Zoltan? Why should I do that? And the idea from you is like, well, because you prefer it. It's like that's it. That's the whole game, right?
But listen, every person that comes to transhumanism must make a choice, and the choice that I've made, which is they love life enough or they're afraid of dying enough to want to do something more. And let's be honest, the same thing happens in Christianity. To accept the grace of the Lord, everybody has to personally come to Jesus, beg for forgiveness, and be given the grace of God. It is a journey. We all make this journey individually, whether it's Christianity, whether it's transhumanism. So I think I feel like you're just kind of fuddling around with words and concepts, but not really actually coming down with how there's this huge distinction between Christianity and transhumanism. I think everyone feels like I do. Nobody wants to die. They have family they love the planet Earth. And if they can live
Well,
longer, they want to do that.
but I am expressing the distinction. The distinction is teleology. Christianity grounds its entire moral, ethical, and human system in God. That's what we do, right? We ground from our worldview. We're grounding everything in God. It's not about us. It's not about what we want. It's not about what our preferences are. It comes down to our grounding foundation being principled in God and God's commandments to us. You have the opposite, right? You literally are following an oppositional system to this. Whereas you are saying everything that I have a preference for, instead, I am God. I am the person who is the ultimate arbiter. I am the person who ultimately gets to be the decision maker, the decider. I am the person who gets to guide everybody's life or my own life, this type of thing. Now, hang on.
Andrew,
Before you say I'm putting, hang
you have
on.
nailed it. No. This is great. You finally got it. This is exactly right. And what you just said. And I appreciate you taking it, because now you've taken us to that next level. Listen, you are right. Transhumanism is a selfish son of a philosophy, whereas Christianity is really this framework that God already existed. Transhumanism, we're out in the open. I was thinking about this. I was driving today. What was I going to tell you? I'll tell you the truth, man. I'm lost. I am so lost. I've asked for God in my heart. I've asked for all sorts of things. I studied religion when I was in undergrad and graduate school. But the reason I'm lost is also the reason that I have discovered transhumanism. It is a philosophy that has kept me comfortable, happy, and able to be the curious entity that I am,
Gave you
to
purpose,
reach out and
right?
try to do things.
Gave you purpose.
Yeah, no, it gave me purpose.
But do you
But you're
see?
right,
Do you see
100%.
now, like the idea here for telos purpose? That is what Christianity gives that you can't give, and this is the problem.
No. I have purpose
hang
too.
on.
I love
I know you.
transhumanism.
I
Gives
know
me
you
plenty
do.
of
You have a
purpose.
preferential purpose, but at the same time, you say you have purpose. Man, I'm lost. Man, I'm lost. The thing is, it's funny. Hang on. The thing is funny here. Ultimately, this reminds me. There was an old Justice League episode, right? An old cartoon, Justice League, right, with Superman, where they make the cyborg, and the cyborg can live forever, and he accumulates all this knowledge, and he decides he's going to destroy everybody on planet Earth, and he's arguing with Lex Luthor, the villain, right? And the cyborg says the exact same thing you just said to me, to Lex Luthor. He says, I'm lost. I don't know. I have infinite power and I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with it. I'm completely lost. I'm wayward. What am I supposed to do here? Right? He was just as confused as you are. Might I introduce you to Jesus Christ as potentially being your Lord and Savior for this purpose? Right? For telos. And
Well,
that's the idea of purpose, Zoltan. That's why
I
America needs
appreciate that. And I thought
Christianity.
you would introduce me. But I think that the reality is that I have searched, I have asked for God in my heart in all these things. I was raised a Catholic. So I mean, I was been around this forever, but it hasn't happened. So for me, who doesn't want to die because I love life and because I'm scared of dying, I found transhumanism as the best philosophy that I could find to get me off this planet into the stars and trying brand new things, creating artificial intelligence, maybe going back to your zombie things where we become different hybrid animals. That's all great. The Star Wars era, the Star Trek era, this is what transhumanism is about. And yes, it doesn't have this teleological foundation that you create, that you say you have with God, which is great. You have it. But transhumanists don't. So we have to create that. And I don't think it lessens the purpose in any way.
You know,
I
it's
think
interesting you
purpose is
bring
something
up
that we feel inside. But I think
it's interesting you bring up like Star Trek and Star Wars, right? Both science fiction, where you've conquered all sorts of human conditionals, and yet the entirety of these sagas are conflict oriented and conflict based around worldviews and ideology. In Star Wars, between the Jedi and the Sith, both religions, by the way, technology did not surmount them in Lucas's mind when he looked to the future. The same exact thing in Star Trek, where the first thing you did was have a federation of communists, right? And all that happened is that now your enemies became entire other planets rather than just your enemies on your own planet. Interestingly enough, when we start to explore the human condition of what happens when we advance technology to its zenith, and we can now go and explore with other species, what we find very quickly in our own thought exercises manifested through our own Hollywood executives is that we're going to blow each other up. We're going to find photon torpedoes. We're going to do we're going to do all sorts of in other words, the horribleness of the human condition does not go away with technology. And immortality also would not solve this, Zoltan. Like, there's a lot of implications with immortality, which are way more frightening than death. For instance, what if you're immortal? Let's say that we had little nano machines that I could put in your body that instantly they keep you not only aged, right, properly, but they also, are able to synthesize some type of product which they inject into you, which takes care of, almost all of your material needs, your water, your health, things like this. Now, of course, this is technology we're very, very far away from if we ever get to it. But it would perpetually keep you alive forever. And let's say you pissed me off one day. So what I did was I took a 55-gallon drum and I stuffed you into it, and then I sealed the top and welded it and buried you 500 feet into the ground. Does that sound like a condition that you would want, or would you prefer death then? Would you prefer death or over the idea that you would be sealed in a 55-gallon drum and buried 500 feet down for eternity, essentially?
no, many transhumanists would say like some type of slavery as you're describing or eternal pain is definitely worth non-existence. But I want to go back to purpose because what you said was really, really interesting. You have an innate purpose because God already exists, according to you. And transhumanists do not. They have to create their purpose. And I would argue that creating your purpose in the end makes purpose more justifiable, more grandiose, better than the purpose that you have because God already existed. I like the idea of being an inventor and creating my own purpose.
Yeah, that's great, but do you realize how this is actually self-refuting? If it really just comes down to the idea of sex of the population having a preference to do X thing, in this case, your preference is that you follow transhumanist ideology because you want to live forever or upload your mind into a data machine or whatever it is that you want to do. The specifics I don't think matter quite as much. But if that's the case, then don't you understand that I could make the same appeal, that I could just appeal to the preferences of the masses and say, well, you know what? We don't prefer transhumanism. So therefore, the ideology is wrong. The ideology must be wrong if it's the case that all we're doing is using individualistic preferences in order to come to the ideology to begin with. If the entire starting axiom base is Zoltan's preference is that he lives forever, and everybody else's preference is that they do not, right? What makes your preference superior to their own? Can you tell me that?
Well, what worries me
Hang on. I
about
want to
what
be
you just
specific with
said,
this question. I want to be very specific because I want you to answer the question I'm asking instead of not answering the question I'm asking. If it comes down to the idea of Zoltan's preference versus everybody else's preference, they don't want to be transhumanist and you do. Why are they wrong? That's the question that I want an answer to. Why are they wrong and you're right?
oh God, they're definitely not wrong. I mean, listen, I come from a libertarian background, so I think everybody is going to be right in their individualistic idea. And I worry that Christianity is a totalitarian regime. I mean,
There we
that's
go.
really what happens with Christianity is nobody has any say in the matter. It's just been put here, and your purpose is whatever God says. We all live in a giant dictatorship. At least me, I say honestly, I'm lost. I'm searching. I'm trying to do my best, but at least I have my freedoms.
Yeah, this is really funny because you're right. We were able to pull out of this actually what is going on, which is a rebellion to Christianity, which you believe is an oppressive and authoritarian religion and an oppressive and authoritarian regime. Interestingly enough, the idea that we would march towards technocracy with I won't I use this word tongue in cheek because I thought it was funny. I was listening to a debate that you had where the guy called you a technophile. I had never heard that word. I just thought it was kind of humorous, right? Um, but inside of the idea of a technocracy, you're definitely not immune from any sort of dictatorship or authoritarianism. In fact, it makes it easier. Facial recognition, CCTV cameras, which you find in a much more agnostic Britain rather than an English Britain or a Christian Britain. Remember in Britain, right, under Christian ethics, when most of the country followed Christianity, it was far less oppressive than it is now when it's more agnostic, right? And you have CCTV cameras everywhere. You're not allowed to own a gun. You're not allowed to do any of these things. Christianity is not the oppressing factor here. It appears to me that the agnostic technocrats who are following more the model of Zoltan Istvan are the ones who are causing more of the problems of freedom than Christians. In fact, Christians here in the United States, as we're focusing on that, what do they say? They want you to be able to own firearms. Zoltan Istvan, do you want people to be allowed to own firearms, whatever they want? Or are you going to restrict that freedom? And are you going to use your technocracy and your technocratic worldview to enforce that, utilizing these technologies to restrict that freedom? That's the question.